All right, let's do an exercise that will consolidate some of the knowledge we acquired so far in calling functions, passing variables to a function, or having a function return a value. So as I have structured this program, we can see that we're going to be getting the area of a circle. We're going to be getting the area of a rectangle. So now it's just a matter of design in particular that we will pick, or the style of design that we will pick on how we're going to use any of these functions. We know that by the name of these functions that they will eventually return a value as what is the area of the rectangle or the area of the circle. So let's start with the get the area of a rectangle, and we will have the area of the rectangle be self-sufficient, where it will ask the user to enter the actual sides of the rectangle and then return the area after it calculates that area. So let's go ahead and design that. And let's remove pass. As a matter of fact, if I run this program, as we can see here, nothing happens. We're not calling any of these functions. Each one of them has an instruction, no op. These are just placeholders, so I don't get an error message as I structure my program. So in here, the function definition for get area rectangle, we're going to ask the user to enter the two sides of the rectangle. So in here, we're going to have maybe side 1 equals, and remember this time to typecast a float, and then input, enter side 1 of the rectangle. Okay, so we're being explicit as to what is it we intend the user to enter, and then we'll have side 2 equals float input, and in here we're going to ask to enter side 2 of the rectangle. Okay, so now can we calculate the area from there? Sure, we could say the area is equal to, right, side 1 times side 2. Oops, that should be a multiply, not an addition. Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to return area. So as we can see here, the function definition for get area rectangle describes what this function would do. It will ask for two sides, calculate the area, and then it will return the area to whomever calls get area rectangle. Obviously, we're going to be calling that from main when we're ready. I'm going to make the design for get circle slightly different. And for this one, I'm going to use a parameter, which means we will have to supply an argument or a value to that parameter for this to work. And I'm going to call this one radius. As you can see here, there will be a variable radius that will have a value that will be supplied to it by whoever calls it, right? So this will be preloaded in here. So what are we going to do with radius? Well, we can do a few things. But before I do anything, I am going to import math, because we know that we could use math to do pi, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to, because we're going to, the area of a circle is basically pi r squared. So we're going to raise the radius to a power of 2. So we're going to use the power function, and we're going to use the pi that's already stored in the import math or defined in the import math module. So let's go ahead and do the area, and that would be math.pi. So we're going to pick pi here, times, and we're going to raise radius to a certain power. So math.pow, and that will be this function for raising. So it's going to require two parameters. So the first parameter will be radius. The second one is what is it you're raising it to. And then we're going to return area. So for this function to work, you will supply it for a value for radius, and it will eventually return the actual value for area. So now that we know how these two functions work, they slightly don't work the same way. We can see here this one is totally self-contained, except for returning the area. This one is not self-contained. That means you must supply it with radius for it to work, and it will return area for you. So let's go ahead and do the rectangle. So for the rectangle, maybe we need something like this. Area rectangle equals get area rectangle. And that will be it for that, except for printing the area of the rectangle, obviously. Now for the circle, we're going to have to ask the user to input a value for radius, then supply that value to the function. Okay, so first let's finish up the area rectangle so we can actually print the rectangle area equals, and we know that's going to be area rectangle. And how did we get that value? Because the function returned an actual area that was calculated based on the user inputs of side 1 and side 2. As I mentioned before, get area rectangle is pretty much self-contained except for returning the area. So in that case, we must assign that value for the area to some local variable in main that we can handle and print its value as our overall result from that function. Now, how about circle? Well, for the circle, you're going to have to ask the user to input maybe the radius right here. So maybe something like this. Radius, you can rename it the same way as you have there. Or you can call it R, but this is local to main, so it has no correlation to radius and get area circle yet. Logically it does, but not physically. And that will be equal to something like this. Float input, enter the radius. And again, we have that float, so we can typecast to a number, a float type, right? So because we know the input function returns a string, so you're going to have to change it to a float. Now we have it, and we have a value. So if you enter 2.2, then 2.2 will be in this radius. Now, how do we get the area of the circle? Well, you're going to have to call the function get area of circle. And if you're going to call it, you're going to have to supply the value that it returns to some local variable within main. We're going to call this one area circle equals, and we're going to call the function get area circle. And guess what, folks? We're going to supply it with the actual radius that we have here. Okay. By doing so, remember now we have a value for radius. We're supplying it to the function. When we call the function, it's going to take that value now, raise it to 2, multiplies it by pi, and return the actual area. And that will be now our local variable area circle will have that value. Now we're ready to print it. So print the circle area equals, and we're going to enhance this program a little bit, and we're going to enter area circle. Let's go ahead and run it, and then we're going to enhance it so we can round it up to 2 decimal points. Okay, so let me just go ahead and run this. So notice now it's asking me to enter side 1 of the rectangle. Okay, 1.2, and it's going to ask me to enter side 2. Okay, I'm going to enter 2.45. And you can see the area of the rectangle is 2.94. Excellent. How about the radius? Let's say we have a radius of 3.3. Let's see what we get. Well, the circle area comes out correct, except it's too many numbers after the decimal point. So we're going to round things up to 2 decimal points. Now, little tricks of the trade here. Before we actually print the area rectangle, we can format it. So we can actually take the area rectangle and reassign it to itself in this manner. And then we're going to say dot, and we're going to use round. So we're going to use round, and you're going to tell it how many digits you want to round it to. We're going to do the same thing right for area circle, right after we've gotten radius, and we're going to do that for the area circle right here. So this has to be here after you've called the function get area. So that would be area circle equals area circle. So we're going to modify what we got out of area circle in the same way with round to 2 decimal points. So now this ensures that our results, as we print them out to the screen, will be rounded up to 2 decimal points. Let's go ahead and rerun this program. And let's have a sign at 1.3456, right? So you can enter whatever you want. In the end, we're going to end up being rounded up at 2 decimal points. And let's say this one is 2.3999, okay? And notice now the area of the rectangle is 3.23, so it's rounded up to 2 decimal points. All right, so let's go ahead and do the radius. So let's say we had a radius of 4.5678, and we're going to get an area rounded up to 2 decimal points of 65.55. And again, as a reminder of the lesson here, I've used 2 different variations of how to call a function. One by using an argument, or by using its parameter and give it an argument value. And the other one didn't have parameters, so that means it's kind of self-contained. It will need its own inputs. All right, so instead of the area of circle where the input was the radius, so you had to do that in main ahead of time before you call the get area circle. So I hope this was instructive. We're going to investigate more tricks with functions in our next video. I'll see you then.